Silent Hill 2 first person mod. Silent Hill 2 original. This is the enhanced edition for PC. There's Maria. Oop. You want to really quickly get rid of the lens flare. There we go. Gets that little orb out of the field of view. And this is our Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition. First person mod playthrough. Gonna be taking our time looking at all the details very, very slowly as we crawl through Brookhaven. It's gonna be interesting because we also did a free cam playthrough of Silent Hill 3 a while back. And this Brookhaven and Silent Hill 3's Brookhaven are very, very, very similar. Nearly identical, almost completely identical in some rooms. But with some key differences, some notable things that are changed from environment to environment and slight layout changes. So it's a little bit interesting seeing Brookhaven in Silent Hill 3, now Brookhaven in Silent Hill 2, and of course, yeah, how it was depicted in the remake. There's been a time jump from part 1, for anybody who watches part 1 of this on YouTube or anything. If you're just now finishing that and jumping into part 2, there was a big time jump, and I've played Silent Hill 2 Remake in between part 1 and part 2 of this, so Silent Hill 2 Remake has come out. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. But I've been really enjoying the first-person playthroughs and the cam hack playthroughs of the original games. And I need to mess around with it. I believe I've got some tools working to do free cam playthroughs of all of the PS2 releases of any Silent Hill games. So that's Silent Hill 2, 3, and 4, Origins, and Shattered Memories. At some point. The potential for this illness exists in all people, and under the right circumstances, any man or woman would be driven, like him, to the other side. The other side, perhaps, may not be the best way to phrase it. After all, there is no wall between here and there. It lies on the borders where reality and unreality intersect. It is a place both close and distant. Some say it isn't even an illness. I cannot agree with them. I'm a doctor, not a philosopher or even a psychiatrist. But sometimes I have to ask myself this question. It's true that to us, his imaginings are nothing but the inventions of a busy mind, but to him there simply is no other reality. Furthermore, he is happy there. So why, I ask myself, why in the name of healing him must we drag him painfully into the world of our own reality? Something else is written by hand. I got the key from Joseph. It's probably the key to that box. We get these notes, these direct notes from one of the doctors here. One of those things that very drastically changed for the remake. Sort of hinting at a doctor, potentially the Brookhaven director. They don't really name the patients. They leave it more ambiguous when he's talking about them. Game audio seems a little bit loud. Let me turn this down slightly. Probably going to get very loud once we get to where action's happening, so I'll need to adjust it. Hey, what's up, Luke? Yeah, here in the original, you find notes naming each of these patients directly. Jack Davis, who was suicidal, Joseph Barkin, who was believed he was guilty of causing his daughter's death. Had paranoid delusions, a psychotic break. Typical, more along the lines of what James is experiencing. Joshua Lewis, history of hospitalization, numerous assault and battery, violent offenses, persecution complex, more similar to Eddie. So here you get these patients with their their direct names, their symptoms, and kind of the parallel to each of the characters, James, Angela, and Eddie. In the remake, you have the director or a doctor doing his best Jigsaw impression, kind of talking about the patients a bit more vaguely. They don't really name them at all. Gonna beach in the sea. Same medical poster here as in Silent Hill 3, just moved over to this wall. So we should have already picked up, yeah, we've got the purple bull key. Let's start exploring Brookhaven. Original Brookhaven, the same way a lot of environments are in the remake, how they've been recreated, even though everything's been expanded. I felt like it still followed a lot of the same design philosophy, where things are kind of daunting at first, much more like, oh man, there's so many corridors and wings and doors, but once you kind of start checking everything and narrowing everything down, it's not really that much. Although the area is definitely much more expanded upon in remake. No smoking, eating, or drinking. You're going to pay attention to a lot of these textures and things. Much of this has been pretty faithfully recreated for the remake as well. Hidden around in little areas. A lot of these textures, a lot of these little areas. I will say one thing with the remake, because there's not like loading screens going in and out from area to area. You just have Maria sort of follow you around more naturally. I kind of miss this right here, where you just kind of go into a room and she sort of teleports in there. She's just sort of already there. Yeah, take that. You're not real. I don't know. It was a lot more, it was a lot strange. A lot more strange with her character. Going around from room to room. She just teleports in. She just kind of already seems to be there. Even the way some of these cutscenes and stuff are designed, where she's, I don't know, just sort of creepily there in the background. Remake, it feels a little more natural with her following you around. Not necessarily a bad thing, just different take on the character, the way they present. Shotgun in the locker. Maximum capacity, 6 shots. Tough to use, but can attack opponents in a group. Hey, Burak Auto.
Ow. What's wrong?
I just pricked myself.
Just
Are you
pricked
okay?
myself.
Yeah.
How's the Centralia idea, or Centralia? Every time I get inspired to do it, I circle back to the same thing, which is I don't have a way to do it that doesn't come off as mean-spirited against somebody. And I don't want to do that. Just a normal stuffed animal. There's nothing else. Because ideally, I wanted to do a video kind of covering the details of Centralia. For those who don't know, Centralia in Pennsylvania, there's a coal mine fire. And Roger Avery, who co-wrote the first Silent Hill movie, used it as inspiration for the depiction of the town with the coal mine fire in the movie. It was not an inspiration for the games, but a lot of people spread around misinformation saying that it was something that inspired the games, even though it wasn't. There is no coal mine fire in the Silent Hill games. It wasn't something that the developers were even aware of until after most of the games had been made, like after Team Silent had been disbanded. So it's one of those things that spread around as misinformation basically since the movie existed, since about 2006. And I was going to make a video on it, and I made a big playlist to sort of track the spread of that misinformation through influencers and through YouTubers and through people who spread that idea the most, as well as articles and things like that. So again, it's a subject that's really interesting to me, and I think would be really interesting to talk about in general. Just kind of the nature of misinformation and how it spreads, and this particular piece of misinformation and tracking it and why it's still around and that kind of thing. But I don't have a way to really discuss it as thoroughly as I can, as thoroughly as I want to, without it sounding coming off as mean-spirited towards those people who spread that misinfo around. Whether some of them did it intentionally or not is like a whole nother aspect of it, but yeah. There's a magazine here. That won't do me any good right now. Danger. Harmful or fatal. Locker won't open. This is no time to be looking at a stupid poster. Don't get that moment in the remake. Not really. There's something inside the pocket of the white lab jacket. Some of these moments where it cuts back to specific static camera angles, I notice the camera kind of snaps away out of first person again. Examination room key. Sorry. It's hard to tell when you're going to bump into her if you're like kind of moving around her. How do you feel the remake handles the lack of fixed camera angles to set tone and mood through forcing your attention on certain things or certain cinematic perspectives? It's definitely something that is lacking. As much as I enjoy the exploration experience, it is very flat. There's a lot of nice details and a lot of things to find, but yeah, that change in camera's perspective makes that aspect of exploration come off as a little bit flat, a little bit boring. Not enough to like completely kill the mood and the tone. I think they do a good job of maintaining the tone and the mood through the other aspects of the game, through the audio, the sound design, and just through the visuals and visual effects themselves and the attention to detail. So it's a little bit lacking. I miss those camera angles, but I feel like that's more of a personal preference thing. I like that cinematic nature to these types of games, but that's something that, you know, it's personal preference. A lot of people might prefer things staying over the shoulder, feeling much closer to the experience of the character without necessarily being, you know, first person like this, but still kind of down there and in the action all the time. It's a different approach to things. There's a typewriter here. I've got no use for this. Wait a minute. What's this? There's a sheet of carbon paper still stuck in the typewriter. I can still read the imprint left on it. I know it. I know the number of the box, 8246. It can't help him anymore. The button key doesn't scare me, so nobody can stop who I am. I don't know who I am is who I am is who I am is. See, these types of notes, I feel, you know, the creepy notes with like little bits of puzzle solution and stuff included. This type of stuff was recreated and new ones were created very much in the same spirit for the remake. 8246. Hey Zero. I'm doing pretty well. I'm still getting over a little bit of sinus issue. So my throat and voice are a little bit off today. But for the most part, I'm on the recovery end. Been feeling much better the last few days. Lapis key, some shotgun shells. Reload. Should do a playthrough of the House of the Dead series. Who's interested in a full series in-depth story playthrough of House of the Dead? And if you've never played the Silent Hill arcade game, it's basically House of the Dead, just with Silent Hill creatures and locations. Even ones that don't really make sense. But it doesn't matter, because it's just like, hey, remember? Remember these creatures? Remember this place? Doesn't matter that you shouldn't be there, or that that place isn't Silent Hill, or, you know, whatever. Don't pay attention. Shoot the things. Shoot the things you recognize in the place that you recognize. It's a fun game for what it is. And surprisingly goes into backstory of real, like, established lore. You get, like, history on the Little Baroness, which is a boat that had mysterious circumstances surrounding it that's first mentioned in this game. We'll find that note later on when we get to the prison. Technokami, does House of the Dead have a story worth telling? Genuine question. It does have a story. I don't know if I would call it worth telling. It's not really the focal point of that game. It does have a story. And it sort of tries to be consistent, only to go out of its way to ruin that later. Like I said, that I said it jokingly, but that could legitimately be an interesting series playthrough. We got the key. Go back down here. Examination room. All of this music. I love hearing all of the music, all of the sound cues and things like that in this game. And I feel like, for the most part, they were all really well used in the remake as well. Also, there's no significance to like the clocks and things like that in this game, in the original. The way they made the whole 10 past 9 like a really big recurring thing in remake. That's a completely new thing for the remake. It's a reference to the puzzle, the clock puzzle in the apartments in the OG, but the clocks are not all like that in this one. Some of those X-rays. Different little pamphlets and things on the bulletin board. All these details, again, your normal camera angle in here, you wouldn't really even see most of this stuff. I love that there's, unique textures and stuff on a lot of these books, plaques, things that the player wouldn't even normally see. Something cleaner up there. Mitsu, top word is like MITS. There are medical records on the desk, nothing particularly interesting. Is there a plot reason for the clocks in the remake? Like in Homecoming? Yes. Yeah, the same way the clocks in Homecoming are all 2:06 to be like a reference to Alex Shepard's room when he was committed to the hospital. They give 10 past 9 a more like heavy significance in the remake. Make it recurring to where like almost all the clocks say 10 past 9. Third floor, patient wing hall, 7335. That's how you get the code for third floor. Again, things are just sort of set on, can't remember if it's easy action, easy riddle, or normal. Usually I don't put too much of a focus on those things. I'm doing like camera mod playthroughs. I just want to focus on the exploration, looking around at the environment aspect. These boxes of cornflakes, C-O-N-E, flakes, F-L-A-K-E. There's some more whatever cleaner, Mitsu cleaner, some bleach and white. Memo hanging on the refrigerator, food only, do not store drugs. Reference again in Silent Hill 3, when you come to this area, you can get a health drink in here. Heather has a little quippy dialogue about health drinks being food or not. Nice. And you got the operation room, the light above it. Never got the correlation of the time and room number in Homecoming. It's, to be fair, like they make it a recurring thing, like they draw attention to the number, but finding out the Alex's room thing takes a little bit more to piece together. Your biggest clue is once you know kind of what's going on, replaying the game and looking at the intro of Homecoming. You go past, you're escaping essentially Alchemilla Hospital. Well, it's like a nightmare version of Alchemilla Hospital, but in reality, it's Alex sort of reliving, escaping the mental hospital that he was put into. Not Alchemilla, somewhere elsewhere. We don't know exactly. Not in Silent Hill or Shepherd's Glen, though. And as you're escaping, like right before you get to the elevator in the last corridor, specifically room 206 has unique dialogue if you examine it. I've already spoiled a ton of things, but now you have to go play Homecoming, play that intro sequence, go to room 206 and see what that unique interaction is. Maria.
James. Wait a minute. I'm kind of tired. It's just a hangover.
You should rest.
So comfy.
I'm gonna go look for her. For Laura. I'll be back as soon as I can.
So comfy. Yeah. I know the remake has its fancy, professional actors and performances and takes with all of its dialogue and stuff. This is still iconic. I still love the dialogue and performances in this game, just as they are. Not that the remake necessarily does them bad, but something I really, really like about still the original. Nostalgia, mostly, probably.
James, I want to ask you something. What if you can't find Mary? What will you do?
I haven't thought about that.
Haven't thought about that. For her, for Laura, it's like he's catching himself from saying Mary. Yeah, that's one thing that I was definitely noticing is vocal performances in the remake. I feel like the facial expressions do so much heavy lifting. Whereas in this, the facial expressions were fairly limited for the time, so a lot of the expression had to come through the voice acting, maybe a little bit more over the top, a little bit more like a stage play rather than sort of more professional, more natural, otherwise dialogue.
I'll be okay soon. Did you find Laura?
Because Rachel and I were sitting and kind of discussing parallels, differences between the remake and the original. That was something that we brought up where they did the original game in a much more theatrical way. So one of the things, yeah, Rachel brought, that is 100% credit to her for that comparison. But once we started talking about it, it worked in such a great way. For me, the way I sort of equate it is I'm a big fan of the musical Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. So I love the stage version starring Angela Lansbury and George Hearn, because that's just one that I watched when I was very young. Those are the performances that are how I came to know that musical. So in my head, they feel like, the correct one because it's the one that, was my introduction and is really, really good. So then you have like the movie Tim Burton, Johnny Depp, Helena Bonham Carter, Sweeney Todd, which I also like for different reasons. Like, that's kind of how I feel about the original Silent Hill 2 and the remake. It feels sort of like a film that was made of one of the best stage plays I've ever seen. So things that were originally sort of more campy and over the top, the same way a stage play would be, is sort of just how games in 2001 were, sort of how they had to be. You had to express things through those performances a little more over the top because you didn't have those really super fine, detailed facial expressions and things. And that limited visual quality Rachel brought up was a good comparison of sitting in the theater watching a stage play from like several rows back where you can't quite make out the very fine details of an actor's face. So they have to sort of exaggerate their movements, exaggerate their voice so that they can convey more nuanced, performance that tracks, that, anybody watching front row, back row doesn't matter. Whereas when you make something for like a movie, you sort of make it with the idea that everybody's got the perfect view. So you can make things much more fine-tuned. You can have people whisper. You can do close-ups where you see sweat, dripping down, or somebody's pupil dilate, like really, really fine detail. And I don't know. It's just a different take on things. You make things with a different mindset. They each have their pros and cons. And playing the original, like, I still love this game. To me, this still holds up. I feel like, again, the remake's really enjoyable, but I still just want availability for these original games more than anything, so that more people can experience them without piracy or paying an arm and a leg. There's something written on the wall. Louise, I'll take care of you forever. It's my destiny, and we have a box locked with 4 locks. Forever. So this is Joseph Barkin's room. You even get a reference to this in the remake. This original chain holding the box together, left behind on a dirty bed like this, with the rest of it missing. We've got the lapis eye key and the purple bull key. These can both be used now. And a number on, not the whiteboard, the print on carbon paper, 8246. That's going to be this one. But we still need turn the numbers. Hey, Transmit Ace. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm really glad the video was doing well. I was beating myself up trying to get that video done for so long because I just kind of crash course taught myself how to edit to make things like that. Learned a lot. It was a very frustrating process. I learned how to edit. I learned I don't enjoy editing, and I hope everyone likes it. Don't expect videos like that very frequently. I'm still gonna do more, but yeah. I'm not very big on editing, and I'm still not very good at it. So I'll do more stuff. It just takes me a while. The chain link fence blocking off everything here on the rooftop. This is a much more common thing I notice in Japan compared to the United States, where a lot of times you just don't have roof access. But if you do get around to an area where you've got access to the roof, most of the time there's not really anything, not this kind of fencing and stuff there, unless there was a specific incident. So then we have this diary here, which to me always felt sort of like an incident, sort of a reason why this fencing is here. There's something on the floor. Is this a diary? May 9th, rain. Stared out the window all day. Peaceful here, nothing to do. Still not allowed to go outside. May 10th, still raining. Talked with the doctor a little. Would they have saved me if I didn't have a family to feed? I know I'm pathetic, weak. Not everyone can be strong. May 11th, rain again. The meds made me feel sick today. If I'm only better when I'm drugged, then who am I anyway? May 12th, rain as usual. I don't want to cause any more trouble for anyone, but I'm a bother either way. Can it really be such a sin to run instead of fight? Some people may say so, but they don't have to live in my shoes. It may be selfish, but it's what I want. It's too hard like this. It's just too hard. May 13th. It's clear outside. The doctors tell me I've been released, that I've got to go home. The diary ends here. There are no more entries. What was the diary doing up here? And the remake actually continues that last entry for the diary. It's like word for word the same up until the very end of it. Now, I should be able to moonwalk here and watch Pyramid Head spawn in. There he is. The metal net is rusty and falling apart. Looks like if I push hard, I could move it away. And as long as you leave this text up, Pyramid Head will just sort of wander in circles. You can see him there at the bottom a little bit. He'll wait for you to finish reading. OG Pyramid Head, very, very polite. Pyramid Head spin emote like this, but triangular. Might be able to do that. James falls off the roof. And you actually take a lot of damage here in the original. I've only played normal on remake so far. I don't know if it's different on hard or anything. But I don't think you take damage during this sequence in the new game. Something is written on the wall. If Joseph looks calm, he can be taken out of his cell. So Joseph was seemingly given more freedom compared to a lot of other patients in Brookhaven, based on the way the nurses and doctors, all of these notes seem to be talking about Joseph. And eventually we find out that the doctor leaves us a note telling us that a patient buried the box in the ground in front of the statue in Rosewater Park with the Historical Society key. Doesn't specify which patient, but I would assume Joseph Barkin, considering Joseph also has the box with the hair from his daughter Louise in it. The fact that he hides things in boxes like that, and sort of has a bit more freedom compared to these other prisoners. There's something written on the wall. 3279. Turn the numbers. Better not forget them, so I'll write them down here. The other one, my secret name. The difficulty that you're playing on, the riddle difficulty, determines how difficult it is to read these numbers. The font becomes more and more smudged on harder difficulties, so that it's a little bit harder to tell certain numbers. Some of the 7s kind of look like 2s or 1s. Some of the 8s kind of look like 6s. 3279. I forget, does the damage taken here count in the stats at the end? It does. It tracks. Well, if you're looking at like the damage taken stat, it tracks that you like heal it. If you heal it. If you don't heal it, it doesn't necessarily count against you, but by running around and not healing, you're also gathering points for in water above anything else. So if you're trying to go for like a specific ending, it can be difficult to do if you want something other than in water, but you don't want to heal. Be weird. Turn the numbers. 3279. Nothing inside the box? No, I'm wrong. There are a few hairs inside. I think they did a nice, interesting kind of twist on that for the remake. Although it makes things like this a little less interesting in the remake as well. Even though this is sort of nonsensical to begin with. The needle in the hair. They replace the hair with something that makes a bit more sense. Who cares about logic? Kept the green slime. Glowing green slime. How do guns work in this mode? Do you need to aim? I mean, you do still need to aim, essentially. Like, it is interesting how accurate this really works with shooting at enemies, aiming, and freely doing stuff in first person. Because typically, whenever you would aim in the original, like, you still have to get close enough or make sure your light's on, make sure that you're readying the weapon so that James sort of like snaps to them. But yeah, in this, you really can just freely aim around, and it's pretty accurate to where you shoot. Yonkers. It said Yonkers on the panel in the elevator. Whatever that is. The piles of discarded beds and mattresses, the old TVs. That ambient sound, those tones. Something metallic falling through pipes somewhere very distant, just echoing close to where you are. Out here you get that breathing. It all opens back up. And with first person you can see Laura actually down there, hunched over, playing with the bears. Trying to get as close as I can without triggering the cutscene. You can see the arms stretched a little strangely there. Can't tell if she's actually got something in her hand. I don't think she does. But again, a lot of this is not normally visible. And then she whips around and she's facing the other way. Have I watched the new endings? Most of them.
Laura?
Huh? You know my name?
Eddie told me.
Actually, I think I have seen all of them.
Blabbermouth.
Yeah.
How do you know about Mary?
What's the big deal?
Why can't you just tell me?
You gonna yell at me if I don't?
No, I won't.
I was friends with Mary. We met at the hospital. It was last year.
You liar! Laura,
Fine, don't believe me.
But last year, Mary was already... I'm sorry, Laura. Anyway, let's go. We can talk about this later. This is no place for a kid. There are all sorts of strange things around here. I can't believe you haven't even gotten a scratch on you.
Why should I? Wait! There's something I gotta get.
Later, okay?
But it's really important.
What is it?
A letter from Mary.
Huh?
I wanna go get it. Is that okay?
Yes!
Come on, hurry up.
Is it in there?
Yeah, in the back.
What are you doing, Laura?
It's further back, in the desk.
Laura! What are you doing?
Ha ha, I tricked you.
Open the door, Laura.
Why should I? I'm a liar, right? Want me to open it? Huh? Do ya? What's the magic word?
Laura?
Okay, I guess it won't open it. I think I'll just leave you like this.
You snotty little brat! Open up!
Why, you...
Laura?
You hurt me!
That fucking sound. I love the sound of flesh lips. And then you have to deal with it. This is one thing. I appreciate the remake, like redoing these fights for the way the mechanics and everything had to be redone. But this is like so claustrophobic. Two of these in this little tiny room with awkward ass controls normally. Even for someone like me who's played this game a million times and is very fluent with the controls, it's an awkward little space to try to move and fight and do things like efficiently. So you kind of got that sense of fear from it that in the remake they really blow this up and make it a lot more expanded, which is interesting in its own way. I like seeing a new twist on that sort of thing, but yeah, very different approach to the horror through the gameplay. can see they sort of redesigned them in the remake to make the mouth on the bottom between the legs more prominent, more visible. But it's there even in the original. This one just like Blair Witch over in the corner. So you can see with me aiming the gun, like if I miss, if I'm like off to the side a little bit, it doesn't connect. Like the bullets don't lock on. It's not just like a visual of the gun pointing. I'm actually shooting where it points. It's not just done for the sake of the mod to like visually line up or anything. Because some things will do that where you're still locking on to it and just shooting it no matter where you aim, where you like turn to the side, but visually the gun is off to one side, but you're still just locked on shooting something in one direction. Not the case with this. It's really impressive. You can actually get some really unique enemy behavior in certain situations like this. So if you try to block yourself with one of the dead flesh lips while another one is trying to attack you, and you're out of range of its attack where it tries to kick you, it will keep doing the kick attack, and every time it does it, it will add on more and more range to the hitbox of the attack until it eventually reaches you. Like, it has little fail-safes to try to prevent you from just sitting and cheesing stuff out too much. Oh, there's the third one. See, a lot of people getting all excited in the remake about the multiple phases to the boss. That was it in 2001. You're dealing with two, you finally kill one, you're trying to deal with the last one, and then a third one drops down. You're like, fuck me, there's a third one? A little more intense in the new game. But in 2001, like, that's the kind of shit. You did not want to have to deal with another one of these. I'm gonna let it strangle me out in first person. Ugh. And then the fight is just very abruptly switches to this camera view. That's the same in the original. It switches to first person there.
James.
very, very quick and abrupt, just switch of perspective. You're fighting the bosses, you think you've killed them, the siren goes off, you get that first person, you're trying to figure out, am I looking at a wall, am I looking at a ceiling? Jacob's Ladder moment with Mary's voice. It's very, very fast, very abrupt, and then leaves you here in the garden, which on the map it looks like it's this big open area, but in reality it's just walled in, this very specific small place. So this is one thing that I did like more about the original, that they don't ruin this aspect of surprise. You don't know that this cube is like here, that this walled off area is here. Whereas in the remake, if you look at the map, you sort of realize it before you ever go there. Still don't know what happened in the scene. Did James just lose consciousness? I think it's just trying to sort of visually convey James slipping out of his reality and into the other world. They needed a way to visually show that, and his consciousness is going through some, as his physical body as well, obviously kind of goes through this transition sequence, winding up here. There's a lot of things in these games that there's not really a fair literal explanation for what is going on. Even Masahiro Ito doesn't answer, every single question. There's a lot of stuff that's specifically left vague. Random jump scare there with the broken glass sound in this room. Love the new look of Brookhaven after the whole flesh lips section. The blood and everything, much more distinctly blood. It's not just sort of like mysterious dark stains or anything like that. Just but it's sort of blending in with the rust and everything that was already there. The floors, the stains and discoloration are almost sort of like skin, like rotted skin. It's like veins. These little veins and things running through certain areas of it. A lot more of it covered in these tarps, and of course all of them are becoming more and more soiled. It's one thing that I do like depicted in the remake. Seeing the sheets, getting the sense of sort of the type of fabric. Is that very much like hospital bed sheet fabric? Getting more and more soiled as time goes on. Yeah, Technokami. I've been comparing video of early trailers, the 1.0 build that's apparently on the physical discs for Silent Hill 2 Remake, and the release version. Lots of little differences and changes. All of that is stuff that I was tempted to do, like individual videos and stuff, but that'll all basically just be part of an eventual in-depth story playthrough of Silent Hill 2 Remake. Once I kind of get all that information together, I'll talk about the development history of it and all the different versions of it, the way they changed aspects of scenes. Some scenes very, very different. I was locked up inside the basement's basement. I was so small and dark. It was so small and dark, and I was so afraid. I dropped my precious ring, but I will never, ever go back there. Hands reaching up for something. We get our basement storeroom key and the battery. Part of the wallpaper is torn. I can see something drawn on the wall beneath. Are those hands searching for something? Or are they just a sign of pain? Like these moments where you sort of get James' inner monologue. Something that is difficult to convey in the way they've done the remake. Because it sounds less impactful when it's James just talking out loud to himself. But at the same time, it can ruin the flow of things sometimes to have the player stop and read a specific note where there's like text up on the screen. But I still miss these little insights into James without him just saying something out loud to himself or anything. I can't read the other text on there, but Youngers. It's locked. There's a painting of a woman on the door. Oddly enough, the hand part of the painting is actually 3D and sticks out. See, this is where you had to use your imagination in 2001. Because in my mind, this wall, this painting, looks like this all the time. Like with all this detail where you can see all the little smudges and things in the paint strokes, the hands coming off of it, as opposed to like this. But I still love this texture art, the like pixels used to make these textures and everything, because making all that work and having all of that work is like a separate texture, separate part of the game here, or part of the wall, these hallways. Really, really cool. And there's so much detail to it, all the different figures of the women. all throughout the side of it, kind of curving around, with the arms themselves sticking out on this part. Ampule, handgun bullets. I gotta say, I miss having the more variations in healing in the remake, but I understand they needed to do something like really quick where the animation just happens. So just drinking one of these or shoving a random dirty needle into your arm, I guess makes more sense than trying to use an ampule, because ampules are kind of difficult to use. If you don't know what you're doing, you'll just end up with broken glass and spilling shit everywhere. And I guess with the first aid kit, it's not really specific. There's a lot of things you can do with the first aid kit. And I would imagine they probably tested first aid kits. I can imagine a like Dead by Daylight self-care animation of James like wrapping bandages around his stomach. And they were like, nah, that looks stupid. Just inject him with the dirty needle. That looks more natural. At least it's quick. There's a piece of paper on the bed. Just some doodle. Huh, something is written on it. She is an angel. No one knows. Only I can see, the lady of the door. They cannot walk along her bridge of thread. They fall from the weight of their crimes. Like bloated and ugly corpses, their sins, she devours them. Sin and sinner alike, she saves me. She is an angel. Potentially a reference to an old Japanese folk story called The Spider's Thread. Here we are. So this is the room where you leave Maria behind. And if you revisit, very different music. Well, no music, just this ambient breathing coming from inside this room. And medicine bottles. There are empty medicine bottles here. Is this what Maria was taking? Is Maria sick now too? Not just is Maria sick, is Maria sick now too? So it's sort of James acknowledging that Mary was also sick. He's acknowledging this parallel again between Mary and Maria, while also sort of being forced to listen to Mary's breathing. The heartbeat, the faint heartbeat in the background as well. It's interesting, right? How something like this, something sort of so primal as just breathing and heartbeat, in the right context can be one of the most comforting things in the world. And in the wrong context can just be horrifying. Steel pipe action. Nothing here yet in this storage room. But that will change. Need to go downstairs, but let's check up first. Vague little writing here telling you you're on the second floor. First floor. And since all the signs and everything are gone, but like somebody still marked each floor. Also normally a sound effect that plays down here. There's a shelf here. There are red handprints on the shelf. Move that shelf. Things you do in the remake. You do a lot more shelf pushing. See, look, this is a reference to the remake right here. They knew back in 2001. In 23 years, when we remake this game, we're going to have James shove all these shelves out of the way so that he can crawl through all these little spots. So here's just a room full of all the things that James is going to shove out of the way. Or climb on.
James.
James.
Mary? Oh, Maria. It's you. I thought you were... Sorry. Anyway, I'm glad you're alive.
Anyway? What do you mean, anyway? You don't sound very happy to see me. I was almost killed back there. Why didn't you try to save me? All you care about is that dead wife of yours. I've never been so scared in my whole life. You couldn't care less about me, could you?
No, I
Then
just...
stay with me. Don't ever leave me alone. You're supposed to take care of me. So, what about Laura? Did you find her?
Yeah, but... She ran away.
We've got to find her.
You really seem to care about her. Do you know her?
I've never met her before. I just feel sorry for her. She's all alone. And for some reason, I feel like it's up to me to protect her.
Whoa. My hand is not on the mouse during cutscenes. So sometimes whenever it like goes back to giving player control, the mod sort of like snaps in a weird direction. Didn't like Maria's voice actress in the remake in this scene. She sounded like she was annoyed more than angry, sad. This scene in particular, that delivery, it's so iconic. And there's just something in a delivery that says something like that scream. When she screams anyway, there's a very particular intention behind that type of anyway, that it's not just anger. There's a lot more to it. It's a lot more nuance to it. And any boyfriend or husband who's been yelled at and heard that tone knows there's a difference between someone just saying that word loudly, even if it's a professional actress, like really saying it in a very convincing way, versus a very authentic feeling of like hearing the line and feeling in my core like I'm in trouble. When she screams anyway in the original, I feel like I'm in trouble. The portrayal in the remake is good, but it doesn't give me that feeling. I got the copper ring. Again, I missed this little aspect of her sort of teleporting around. Even if that wasn't intentional, if that was sort of a limitation of the time, but... There's our sound effect. I was listening for this one in the remake. I can't remember. I don't think I heard it. Although I've heard from other people that it is there. But I don't know if I heard this one on my playthrough on remake. That little squeal sound effect, which is actually a baby crying, just very, very sped up and pitch shifted. James is much better in the remake, though. I agree. I think both the remake and the original have things that are better. Like some things in the OG, I prefer the intention behind the lines and the deliveries feel more like a real person rather than a performance. Some things in the remake are just much better takes of something that came off as kind of clunky or a little bit too awkward in the original. I love Guy See's performance for James, and especially because I know enough of his story. I know enough of his history and behind like his casting and what he was going through just as a person, not as an actor, because he wasn't really an actor. He didn't get the role. He didn't even audition, and he didn't go to audition for the part. He went to take his daughter to audition for Laura. And the reason why Jeremy Blaustein hired him or wanted him to try for James was because Guy Seehey fit the character as a person so well. He was at that time, he was going through a divorce, and he admitted later on in interviews that he was suicidal at times. The only thing that kept him going was he didn't want to leave his kids with his ex-wife, his soon-to-be ex-wife. So, like, he was in a very, very dark place in his life when he went in for Silent Hill 2. And he conveyed that information to Jeremy and to the team when they asked him to audition, and they told him about the story and they told him about the character. And it was like fate, right? Now, Guy Seehey is very limited because he's not a professional actor. He's done some commercials. He's done some stage play stuff in college and, professional voiceover work. Like, a lot of people say he's not a voice actor, and he's not really an actor, but he did professional voice work. He did like radio and, little things like that in Japan, just because he was, spoke English and Japanese. He did a lot of that sort of work. So it wasn't his first time like ever doing any kind of voice recording and voice work, but it was kind of his first proper role for something kind of major like that, where he really had to act as well. speaking of acting,
Hi there, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
there's no question
Welcome to another exciting edition of Trick or Treat.
which is better here.
Here you either answer the questions correctly and win a great prize, or fail to answer correctly and receive the punishment. It all depends on you. And our lucky, or should I say unlucky challenger today is James. James Sunderland! Are you ready to play Trick or Treat? Okay, here's your first question. Merry-go-round, haunted house, roller coaster, Ferris wheel, and teacups. Silent Hill is home to a thrilling amusement park that both children and adults love. The question is, what is the name of this amusement park? 1. Fantasyland. 2. Silent Hill Amusement Park. 3. Lakeside Amusement Park. Okay, quickly on to question number 2. Silent Hill witnessed a gruesome murder a few years back. A brother and sister were playing in the road when they were attacked and chopped into pieces with an axe. Torn flesh, smashed bones, splattered blood, and finally, bitter tears. What a terrible tragedy. What a gruesome end to such innocent lives. Now the question. What was the name of the murderer who committed this vile act? 1. Walter Sullivan. 2. Scott Fairbanks. 3. Eric Gaines. Now for our third and final question. South of the lake is a deserted old neighborhood called South Vale. From there to Pale Vale, the central resort area northwest of the lake, there's only one road you can take. Just one road, no more. The third and final question is, what is the name of that road? 1. Bachman Road. 2. Rindell Street. 3. Nathan Avenue. Well, that's the last of our questions. Have you got it all figured out? When you know the answers, head to the storeroom on the 3rd floor to collect your prizes. But be careful if you're wrong. Well then, everybody, thanks for tuning in. See you again sometime. Bye-bye.
What was that?
What was that? Yeah, this being very different for the remake, I thought it was very strange not having Maria with you during the scene. And then the energy, I get that they're kind of going for a darker, more sinister, Jigsaw-esque kind of tone, but I understand they felt like they couldn't do this exactly, that this would probably come off as way maybe too silly, but I don't know. You need those moments of kind of bizarre levity, because there's nothing else in the entire game that's like this. It's not like this starts a theme of crazy game show that becomes a recurring thing. Every area has a quiz. Like, no. It's one weird little fucking thing. And if you do it right, it comes off still creepy. Even if it is campy. Even if it is silly and has like a crowd and almost basically a laugh track and stuff, it's still creepy. It is. It really is at the end of the day. Who did the voice? I believe Dominic Allen was who had the credit. He's apparently done a bunch of stuff. Brad Burns in Virtua Fighter. I had to pull up notes. Mafuyu in Fatal Frame. That's Mafuyu. Although this is IMDb, although I think that might be correct. But a lot of those notes I have like an asterisk. Not everything on IMDb is correct. Oh yeah, joked about this. This cable was not here in the original. There was just a cable that went part way and then sort of trailed off and disappeared. And for the enhanced edition, they added the rest of the cable. And in the remake, in Silent Hill 2 remake, they kept this enhanced edition cable. Remake was like, shoutouts to enhanced edition. We're keeping the refrigerator cable. All the Silent Hill 2 PS2 purists are seething. There's something that looks like a refrigerator. Open it.
You can't open it?
Yeah, Maria, give me a hand here.
Come on. You're supposed to be the big man around here. How's a little girl like me supposed to help? What's this? Not very cute, is it? Here, James. You take it.
Thanks.
I got the lead ring. Thanks. Oh. Well, all right. Well, thank you. Don't mind if I do. Again, it's silly, it's stupid, but it's iconic and I love it, and there's no way you could ever hope to match that energy. Luke Roberts, fantastic actor, did really, really well for James. Did not. I can't even remember how he said it. I just played it. A few days ago. I cannot remember how he said this in the remake. It's so forgettable. Ooh, that's not right. Copper ring found in the basement of the hospital, engraved with a picture of a spider. And the lead ring from the refrigerator, it's engraved with a disgusting bloated face. This had a different description in the remake as well, I remember. So you just don't get these creepy Blair Witch moments. When there's no loading screen from room to room, when you open doors normally and Maria just clumsily like walks into the door and opens it with her face behind you. Like, I get it. Some gameplay concessions have to be taken. And this wasn't even like an intentional thing, most likely. This was kind of I lean more towards this being a limitation, happy accident kind of thing. Having her just staring in a corner when you first walk into a room. We have to go back, Maria. Now, after hearing the game show, we have this nice ornamental box. Stuff like this being recreated for the remake was great. They did a great job with this kind of stuff. You can see the ampules and ammo boxes in there. Also, ammo boxes in the original. Crow, Penguin. Of course, these are the enhanced edition recreated textures and stuff for these icons, but still based on the original textures. Stuff like that. That sort of attention to detail is what really impressed me with the remake more than anything. It's not perfect. Not every scene hits the same or feels correct, but the gameplay's fun. The scenes are not bad. Even if they are different, they kind of take a different take on how they portray things. But none of it came off as, like, disrespectful or distasteful, in my opinion. The copper ring on the hand of the lady in the painting. The lead ring on the hand of the lady in the painting. And we're in. Yeah, being able to make stuff like this more dynamic, adding a little scene where the arms move and the door slides open and you kind of see James reacting to it. He's like coughing because there's dust. It hasn't moved in so long. I like those little details. I like that sort of aspect of... That's the sort of stuff that a remake should do. Being able to take a moment like this and make it into a real moment. Instead of, like, you went through all the trouble to get these rings. You solved the puzzle. Your reward is... It's very satisfying. I'm through the door. But changing it so that you kind of get a little visual reward for that as well. Of, like... Here's a little cutscene of it happening. You get to kind of see what you're doing, what you just solved, what that's actually achieving. Firsthand. That sort of stuff is nice. There's a note on the ground. The handwriting is hard to read. Took the director's key, the one to the museum. I hid it behind the praying woman when I went out for the day trip. I picked it up, but I did not steal it. I'm not a criminal. Catch your breath. Next part's tricky. You can see, looking at this part in first person, again, the way aspects of this were recreated, the look of the lights, the ventilation and stuff. Again, recreated and expanded upon in the same vein. But even in the original, being able to look at all this in first person, see all this detail from this perspective, you wouldn't normally see it. You have very specific camera angles during this sequence. They wanted to present this hallway in a very specific way with the default camera. So being able to see it from first person, you get to break sort of some of that cinematic aspect, but even then, seeing things that you're not supposed to from perspectives you're not supposed to, it's crazy how much there is still here, how much detail there is. There he is. The very distinct change in lighting and tone. Don't worry, Maria. You're tough. I think you can take another hit or two. Just let me take a moment to look at the details on the floor.
Open up!
Scenes like this, the scene in the remake is good, but I feel like it was lacking a little bit of the impact that the original had. You really see the movement there when the spear hits. I feel like it's a little more abrupt. The angle we get, you sort of sacrifice that in the remake for the sake of a more cinematic thing to show, like, the blood literally on James, like, her blood is on you, this death is on you. And they wanted to emphasize that through the scene, and again, because of that, they approached it a little differently cinematically. It's the way a lot of stuff in the remake comes off. You can tell they're going for a little bit different tone, or trying to emphasize a different aspect that maybe wasn't quite so emphasized originally. Not necessarily incorrectly, but that change in tone is noticeable. And it can be hard to look past, you know. I try to be as fair as I can, but I'm always going to be biased and nostalgic for this, for the original. Another thing is just in terms of pacing. Again, you want to think of this in there's the practical, you know, animation used to cost more. Mocap used to cost more. It used to be more difficult to do. And you could only put so much data on a PS2 disc. Like, you had to get a lot of things into a relatively limited format. And these scenes, you could only make so many. You can only do so much CG. You can only do so much voice acting and mocap and syncing. So things were kind of snappy. Things are very quick. You got to get the impact of the scene and the reaction from the characters and everything across in a relatively limited amount of dialogue and scenes versus the remake, which takes its time. It takes its sweet ass fucking time with everything, and it definitely changes the feeling of stuff like this, where Maria dying feeling really abrupt, having it just sort of like happen, and then by the time you sort of react to it, you're like, oh shit, it's already over. It doesn't give you have this piano song and this last little bit to sort of think about it, to linger on it. But the scene itself is just like boom, boom, boom. It's done. She's gone. Remake takes its time and sort of lets you focus on it, and it's like, look at her go, look at her trip, here's her face, look at the close-up, here's the blood, look at the hand. And I can appreciate that cinematically, but the pacing does change how you feel about the characters and the scenes, how the stuff plays out. And again, some of that might just be limitations. They had to make the scene shorter because it was harder to do animation, more expensive to do that stuff. They only had so much data on the disc, so having a scene be 45 seconds instead of a minute 45 can be a big difference. Books about medicine, the town and the region are lined up here. Don't have the time to stand around reading all this. I do. Literally what I do. Of all night. Lawrence Monorail? I don't know if we get that in the remake. I know we get some names. I've already got notes, but it's going to take me a lot of playthroughs before I have stuff down committed to memory. So these paintings, stuff you don't normally get to see very clearly, but because of the first person, you can see there's like a face, the tongue sticking out over there. You can make out it's like sort of abstract mutilated body with a hand sticking out, somewhat reminiscent of lying figures or the James corpses. Yeah, I've never really gotten a good look at those paintings. One thing I'll have to do, I've got a cam hack for a PS2 emulator that should effectively work for any Silent Hill on PS2. I'll have to do a playthrough of the PS2 version of this game and take a look at a lot of these assets and see what the originals look like compared to things that the enhanced edition may have added or changed, took some liberties with, because there are a lot of things. This is the enhanced edition.
Doing something so disgusting.
Is that modded? So this is the enhanced edition. This is the Silent Hill 2 original game, the PC port, with the enhanced edition mod. Sub Rosa, thank you so much for the raid. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Welcome. We're checking out Silent Hill 2 in first person.
I'm a police officer from Brams, the next town over.
And gee, thank you so much for the 45 months. You can do this now that we're done with Silent Hill 2 Remake. Yeah. We're still talking about it a little bit. I'm going to try to refrain. I've already spoiled some stuff, but I'm going to try to refrain from too many remake spoilers when we're not actively playing Remake, because I know a lot of people are still getting around to it. But yeah, when it comes to me personally, I'm fine with spoilers. You want to join our Discord and talk about it there, things like that. I'll be playing it again and talking about stuff more freely in the near future. But tonight we're playing OG Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition with the first person camera mod, which very much changes the feel of this game, but it lets us investigate things much closer. Thank you again so much for the resub, G. He who is not bold enough to be stared at from across the abyss is not bold enough to stare into it himself. The truth can only be learned by marching forward. Follow the map. There's a letter and a wrench. Enhance. No more cyborg vision. Enhance. Just James taking out his grubby, filthy toilet hands and scribbling all over it himself. I say it like I'm saying it in a mean way, but I kind of like that. There goes Laura. I don't know how you feel about Laura. I like the outside segment. I like visually how it looks and feels in the remake, but there's also a part of me that sort of likes the mysterious nature of Laura just walking in a void outside your window. And things like that are described in Silent Hill 1 as well, with like Sybil describing Cheryl. Like, I saw Cheryl, but it looked like she was walking on thin air. You know, the road was completely collapsed out from under her. So I kind of always attributed Laura out there walking in the void to like something like that. Something to show us that just like Sybil and Cheryl in that road in Silent Hill 1, we're perceiving something different from what Laura's perceiving. She's experiencing something other than a void, and we just can't even perceive what that is. That, again, ways that we interpret technical limitations at the time, perhaps. I like the night segment in Remake, but I like the way that it's done in this too. In some ways more. Maria's dead. I couldn't protect her, and Laura has run off somewhere. Once again, I couldn't do anything to help. Mary, what should I do? Are you really waiting somewhere for me? Or is this your way of taking? Doesn't quite say revenge. I'm going to find Mary. It's the only thing I have left to hope for. Again, these little moments of inner monologue. I feel like these are kind of lost in the remake as well. Little touches like this. Brookhaven Hospital. Whenever we play the PS2 version and look around with a free cam, that will say Brookhaven. Had a typo in the original PS2 version that they fixed for Enhanced Edition. No trespassing. Vendors, and visitors must register at main office. OFFISE. Which is funny because even though there's typos and stuff on these, the word visitors is spelled correctly. And in the remake, they misspell that on one of those little flyers. Permit perking. Make sure to perk your permits. Make sure they're nice and perky. Oh, boo! Happy Halloween! Boo! Did I scare you? Not Travis Grady's truck. Origins wasn't a thing. See, this kind of stuff from first person, being able to see like missing fence boards that are just broken away, and you can see behind it, you can from your own perspective with your flashlight, see through the fence, the trees and the dirt and stuff, even though it's not much, minor little detail. These little moments, these little things I like about exploring this in first person. Cookie. And no, I can't break the windows. This is not appropriate Silent Hill behavior. If you're feeling a compulsion to break windows, you may want to speak to a professional about that. Jack Nicholson poster. They couldn't use the actual Jack Nicholson for remake reasonably. They tried to recreate it as closely as they could, legally distinct. Heaven's Night. With the sign still lit up, they do a nice little callback to this area in the remake. And of course, this type of stuff is much more exaggerated with like the big barricades covered in bed sheets. Really wanting to emphasize that it's like a supernatural barricade. Just to get probably past the like, why don't you just squeeze past that kind of stuff mentality. Even though there are still tons of moments like that in the game, where James won't go past, won't go upstairs because there's like a tiny little bit of trash in the way. And it's like, really, dude? Fucking step over it. You're gonna make me go solve 2 puzzles and beat 9 mannequins to death because you don't want to step over, like, 2 trash bags in a cardboard box? Sorry, I'm rambling. It's not not my intention to make that the focus of the stream, but hey, I finished playing the remake, and this is my first time coming back to the original after having finished the remake. So it's interesting having that new perspective on things, while also exploring a literal new perspective in this game. First person itself is just so fucking crazy. And again, how well it works. Even with shooting and melee combat and everything. Chainsaw. Of all the Silent Hill protagonists, perhaps Heather should have been able to break windows. Trying to think canonically, who broke the first window? When did they first give you a breakable window where, like, you as a player got to break a window as a character? Alex Shepard? Homecoming? You break like windows and vault over them. Trying to think if that happens before Homecoming. Rush. Off. Something. SPA. Off sport. SPORT. Slack. Offspring. Could be offspring. Especially if that's a reference to Rush. Just some random band names. God. Apologies. Like I said, I've been dealing with some sinus and throat issues, so my voice is not having a good time. I'm on the recovery end of it, but
I'm a police officer from Brams, the next town over.
Yami, thank you so much for the 34 months. Today's Tom Sawyer is a mean guy. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean fry. Guitar riff. Thank you. Heard Rush. You heard right. That's why we're focusing on this graffiti that just says cool. Cool. King Cool Rush. See, I love the bigger pieces of graffiti like this. These textures, I just need to like recreate or rip and import them all into Jet Set Radio. Just do a completely modded version of Jet Set Radio where you're skating around Silent Hill putting all of this graffiti up. There's a video game idea. There's the crossover you never thought would happen. Painted over parking sign. That no in like dripping red. Hey, Wexford. Hope you're doing well. See, we still have these barricades. Excuse me, I'm trying to mute and clear my throat, but my voice is about to be gone. Ah, sorry. But yeah, even in the original, we have these same kind of structures, these like nonsensical barricades with the sheets. And I really do like the emphasis on these, getting close to them in the remake. You can hear them like blowing in the wind and see them moving. Those sorts of details, you know. That's the kind of stuff that I really appreciate. Stuff that just because the technology is better, you can show wind physics, cloth physics, you know. God, my controls bugging out there. Even in the original, just without any kind of mods or anything, I appreciated that you could go back and explore so much of the town again and pick up little items. Still find enemies, kind of restock on some supplies. Not that they're particularly scarce in this game or the remake. A lot of people kind of complained about that with the remake, but even in the original, you have tons of ammo and stuff. Although I think I've got multipliers on, so I have even more than normal. Way more than normal. Get the bullets. Give me the bullets. Sometimes with the first person, not being able to see James and where he's looking and how you're lined up with things kind of makes interacting with stuff a little awkward. It doesn't work flawlessly, but for being just a complete overhaul of the perspective and even how aiming and everything works, it's really surprising how well this works. And I did want to I know people might be wondering why I didn't do the glitch where you get the piano music during this whole segment, but I kind of wanted to compare with just the original audio, and you know how it is normally. Little things in the environment like this. Hole in the fence. Strange objects. Need water or anything? I've got a drink and throat spray. I'm trying to power through it. But thank you. How do you do the glitch? Accept the door message that lays flat on the moving sheet. Oh yeah, that stuck out in the remake. How do I do the glitch? What glitch? What do you mean? To what do you refer? Oh, the piano song glitch. You just go back into Brookhaven after James has the little moment. Go quick turn so that you turn around as quickly as possible, or if you're using directional controls, you just move that direction so that you snap instantly. But yeah, basically just enter and exit Brookhaven really, really quickly, and you'll have the piano song playing while you're out here. Can appreciate these sort of areas and stuff, and how they recreated a lot of these. I don't know if I can really do it with first person. I can try. Now that we've already explored everything, now we're just going to be going where we need to go. But yeah, if you go back into Brookhaven Hospital, can't go anywhere, but you can go into this little lobby area and save your game. It's not necessary for you to save. But normally, once you leave, the music will transition. You go back to the ambient music out here. So, go in. And if you turn around and leave, right as the music transition is happening, you get the Brookhaven music while you're outside. So now you have a very different feeling while you walk around in this pitch black version of the town. There's a similar glitch in the remake. where you can mess up the music. How did you like Silent Hill 2 Remake? I enjoyed it. It was much better than I was expecting. It's got its flaws. It's got its things that I don't necessarily like, and definitely things that I prefer in the original, but it was not a bad time. It was not a bad time. And I'm looking forward to playing it more. That's the big thing. I was worried it was going to feel horrible to replay it. And I'm looking forward to doing more New Game Plus playthroughs, more playthroughs in general. Some full-on, proper in-depth story playthroughs with all my notes and everything once I have all that together. There's a lot of stuff that I'm excited to talk about. Things that the game did that I thought were interesting. Little references that are specific to them. It's cool. It's a good game. It's not a perfect game, but it's good. Zero out of 10. No canned light bulbs. True though. It's definitely lacking a little bit of that sort of charm. But I understand why that sort of stuff is not there. They were going for a different tone. And it's a lot of those things where I prefer the tone of the original. But that's entirely just personal preference thing. Yeah, no dog ending slideshow. Exactly. That kind of stuff. That's the little lacking in charm in a few key areas like that. But then you have things like this. These creatures. This whole segment, which I didn't even experience properly in the remake, because I took so long looking around at other stuff. My first time playing, I missed sort of a setup with the introduction of the Mandarin, but not too different here in the original. It's very creepy hallway, and a boy just jiggling off in the darkness. You don't know what's gonna happen next. It's terrifying. Scariest thing you've ever seen. See, and they do have little tentacles. The little tentacle spike things that come out of the mouths. Same as they ramp it up. They make it crazy in the remake. But same thing, same intent, same design. Right there in the OG. Really cool getting to see it in first person too. See all the details in the texturing, the animations of it. Now it's unlocked. This little RV is still there in the remake, but it's like back there. They like moved it off the street, off this little side area. Interesting to see all those little familiar things that are ever so slightly out of place. Oh, Hyperspray, rest in peace. Hyperspray is in the remake, but it's just a background environment prop as a little Easter egg. It's not a usable weapon. Nothing you can pick up or examine. Get to look at the motorhome, look at the psychedelic texture and everything hanging up above the bed. Everything else very dirty and dingy. But not too unlike a lot of RVs and little trailers like that. There's a memo lying on the sofa. I'll wait at Bar Neely's. I know a lot of people, I watch a lot of people who played the original game for the first time who get stuck in here because they forget how they entered, like the orientation of this little trailer. They think that this is the door to get out, and it's got the big bright red bullseye thing on it. It kind of draws your eye to it. Even the default camera angle doesn't really make it clear which door is the exit door, but it's this one. But I've seen people who are like, I can't get out of the door. But yeah, that door that would be here would basically go nowhere. Not really a door. It kind of opens up a little storage closet area, most likely. Sorry for my throat and voice. Ugh. I might have to call it a little bit shorter than I wanted to. Is this the Otherworld still? It is. I don't even know why I'm picking things up. What color hyperspray do we have? You have various different types of hyperspray, and the strength of the hyperspray depends on the number of stars on your previous playthrough's clear screen. So white and yellow hyperspray don't actually do damage. They only kill bugs and stun other enemies, which is what I have. So it'll temporarily make enemies not attack you. But if you have 10 stars, the highest possible star, you get the green hyper spray, the strongest variation of it. And it is essentially an insta-kill on like everything, including bosses, even on hard mode. It also drains your life while you use it. Really interesting New Game Plus item. Wanted to do something, I guess, kind of similar to their Hyper Blaster from the original, from Silent Hill 1. All pharmacy. And shoes. Again, all of these little places, landmarks in the town. Love seeing all the details, all the signs. Because again, for the original, you didn't have this close of a view for a lot of these things. And most games from this era, like obviously it's cleaned up for Enhanced Edition, but even in the PS2 version, it's still incredibly, incredibly detailed. All these little posters and textures and logos, signs. It makes the world feel much more authentic. You really sort of get to feel the town as a character. You have all these little familiar signs, these things that the more you play, the more familiar they become. Sort of like going to a vacation spot, you know? The first time you go, you don't really know your way around. But the 10th time you go, you're like, oh yeah, there's the fresh meats. Remember that time we went to the fresh meats? And the guy yelled at you, but they had the really good roast beef. It becomes like a place, it becomes like a memory. Excuse me while I wax nostalgic. Beating the shit out of a nurse with a plank with some nails in it. Silent Hill Tavern. And again, the fact that they expanded so much on all this stuff for the remake, letting you go into these places, and really helped with that aspect of like fleshing out the town, fleshing out the world, making the town feel more like a character. Speaking of characters, there's James Sunderland with his face all smashed up. Much more easy to see it with this first-person mod compared to normal camera angles, but all the corpses, or most of the corpses throughout Silent Hill 2, are supposed to be aspects of James's suicidal tendencies and fear of death being projected into the town around him. Although with the remake, it takes those aspects and is instead leaning towards the idea of more loop theory, which was also a fan theory for the original game, back before it was more understood how manifestations work, before Ito and developers and the Lost Memories guide, kind of all of that stuff really clarified James seeing these corpses and the town taking your subconscious mind and projecting it into reality around you. how it plays with your perception of things and makes certain things real. All of those aspects kind of came with time. Like, people didn't understand all of that immediately. As soon as the game came out, there were lots of different theories on how to interpret different aspects of it, and loop theory was one of those early fan theories. That you're seeing all these corpses, and it's like, okay, that's just, in video game terms, those are just all of your previous guys. Those are all your other lives, the times where you played and died, and James is just respawning and trying again, where in a more narrative sense, it's James constantly being brought back by the town to relive the torture, the suffering, to see all of these different outcomes. But they really emphasize that aspect. Really emphasize that aspect in the remake. Whoa, my controls. I was alt-tabbed out accidentally there for a moment. Does this mean Downpour copied that theory? A lot of the games, Downpour copied aspects. Like, essentially, after the Team Silent games, a lot of the Western games captured or tried to copy different little aspects like that from Silent Hill 2. Whether it was official or in misinterpretations by those developers, or just, you know, theories, fan theories that they saw and liked. All the lights and everything here work on a timer. You can see the traffic lights are all powered. Crosswalks and everything switch. That's a detail that's in the PS2 original. It's not added for Enhanced Edition or anything like that. It's interesting because 2 years ago, when Silent Hill 2 Remake was first announced and it was going to be Bloober Team and Motoi Okamoto producing, I was concerned. I had played all the Bloober games and wasn't a big fan of those, and wasn't a big fan of the last few things Konami put out. So I was concerned. I didn't have a whole lot of faith. And I can remember talking about the streetlights and the crosswalks being powered up on Twitter, because the producer Motoi Okamoto had said in an interview like that there was no power in the town, and that you know, they wanted to add this creepy atmosphere where none of the power works and everything is abandoned. And I kind of went and showed a little clip showing the actual crosswalks and everything working, and how that was an aspect of the original. And I don't know, maybe it was a mistranslation, or maybe it was a detail that they changed, but it was something that got implemented into the remake as well. Impressive. I love groovy music. Remake turns this into a whole thing. But here it is in the OG, based on a location in San Bruno, California. All of these buildings right here, these little awnings, the design of the doorways, all this architecture, the shape of the buildings, all of this is one for one, just like several streets, several areas around San Bruno, California. They obviously changed the names of the stores and things, but really interesting when you're seeing photos of it side by side. Silent Jewelers. The floating, non-existent phone booth. There a floating, non-existent phone booth in the remake? Did they keep that detail? Kidding. Dry cleaners. Dry cleaners. Pet center. A lot of locations we saw the very beginning of the game, just now in the Otherworld. Neighborhood cafe. All the notes and everything from the beginning. Another James corpse. Cosmic King Evil asks, Nub, how do you feel about all the added combat in the remake? The remake looks fun, but IMO, I feel like there's too much fighting for so many little enemy variety. Pew pew pew. There's the combat for Silent Hill 2 OG. So yeah. That's one of the things they definitely wanted to change to make the gameplay and experience more action-oriented. I know a lot of people are not going to enjoy that aspect of the game. I thought it was a little bit too much as well. I thought it got unnecessary beyond a certain point. Like, it was cool the first time you see mannequins doing stuff, but it felt like it felt like a kid with a new toy, where Bloober figured out this really neat thing. Whoa. Bloober figured out this really neat thing. They're like, look at this, all these cool variants and cool shit we can do with the enemies. But that made them want to do it everywhere. Everywhere. So it gets to be a bit much. It gets to be a little bit much. I don't think it's bad enough to detract from the overall experience. I still think the game is a great game. But it definitely hurts the pacing. And it takes you out of a lot of moments. Because you're like, god damn it, there's a mannequin or one of these lying figures. I gotta deal with this, and then it's gonna puke everywhere. I gotta dodge out of the way. I just want to go past it and go through the door. It's like those kind of moments. It's a little more frustrating than it is like, look at this horrible creature in the night. What could she mean? She's getting closer. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but like, yeah. That's why they wanted a different take with it. Combat in this game is different. They approached gameplay for this one very differently. Both from a direction standpoint and limitations at the time. Bloober had their version of it. And again, I think it's fine. The combat and everything works. It's appropriate while just being too excessive. That's my only issue. A little too much. If there was like half the number, maybe a little less. If the mannequins hiding was really emphasized instead of like hundreds of times, you see it, you deal with it. If they really emphasized those moments where the mannequins did that, and there was only like 6 times in the whole game where they do that, that's still a lot. But if you set them up and you emphasize them in places and ways where they're more memorable, you could have made that a much more, I don't know, lasting thing with those interactions with the enemies. I think it's a cool thing they tried to do with it. But once they figured it out and saw that it was a cool thing, they were like, let's do it fucking everywhere. And it just became too much. So, both games have their issues with combat. Combat in the original is too simple and straightforward. It's very lacking. It's just sort of a means to an end, but at the very least, it's avoidable. There's very little of it. It's never really forced upon you. Remake, it's more fleshed out. It's more action-y, if you like that. If you want more of a action-y, active role in your combat, it's there. But if you don't want that, too bad. You kind of still have to deal with it. It's less optional. Less optional in the remake. Good thing it's adjustable and separate from puzzles. True. And I need more experience. I've only played on normal so far. I've seen a little bit of my wife doing multiple playthroughs and on New Game Plus now. So I've seen a bit of easy combat for comparison. Oh, look at that. All these areas where the road is collapsed, especially in first person, getting to see the lighting of the flashlight kind of highlighting the walls as they fade off into the darkness. Looks great. Yeah, I was caught up talking about, I don't even remember, something about the remake. Silly, but combat. Yeah, that was it. Ultimately, combat is not really what I play the Silent Hill games for. It's not what I play the original for, but it's fine. It's not what I play the remake for, but it's fine. It's fine in both. It's not my ultimate reason for playing the game, though. I like the atmosphere, the music, the puzzles, the characters, dialogue. All of those things are more important to me. The gameplay is always kind of secondary for the Silent Hill games for me. I mean, obviously, if it's just like atrocious and unavoidable, gameplay can completely ruin an otherwise good story or atmosphere. Rule of Rose is probably my best example personally for that, where the story and everything is so good, but the gameplay is bad enough that it really impacts how you enjoy everything else. Siren, I would argue Siren kind of falls into that category too. Cool premise, cool story. Gameplay, though, you kind of lose out on some really good atmospheric moments because the gameplay has you going, God damn it, what the fuck? Like, that's not what I was trying to do. It can be very frustrating. Not in a good way. There can be good levels of frustration in gameplay like that. There can be a certain level of satisfaction that you feel struggling and getting through something that takes you a moment. I'm not against struggle. Some kind of doghouse. But I can't tell as there's no dog around. It sounds so tame, so timid now. Hearing Guy see his little grunts when he's stomping out these monsters. Compared to Luke Roberts fucking wailing. Where like his voice cracks. As you stomp on a enemy's corpse for the 12th time. Ground is raised up only here. Could there be something under here? Dig. Reworked in-game music tracks was really good and added a lot more depth to some cutscenes for me. I agree, Crook. The soundtrack and the way they did a lot of the stuff with the music was great. A lot of the music, the way it was enhanced, and I mean a lot of that was still Yamaoka going back and touching up his old tracks, but it was good. I've got some nitpicks and complaints about stuff here and there, but the audio, especially just like the music and the new soundtrack, new sound effects, all that stuff, everything in that regard was great. Although there was a few things in terms of like sound design, or I guess direction, however you want to categorize it. Things like Mary's letter at the end being set to not just music, but distracting music. I can understand not wanting that to be silent like compared to the original, but I also feel like that added a lot of impact to it. Hearing it very raw, just Monica Horgan reading the letter and nothing else really distracting, taking away from that. So things like that. I don't mind the music, but it felt a little inappropriate in some places. Little disappointed they don't let Angela watch you walk up the stairs. Yeah, that's right. Everything is sort of handled in cutscene. They changed that for a lot of places where previously you had control of your character in some locations that are relegated now to like cutscene only. Guess we go get our letter and our wrench. Whoops. Whoops. The way James immediately turns around and opens the door to let Angela walk up the stairs is so abrupt. Like he had somewhere to go. See, a lot of those scenes, I need to... I've still only seen them once, maybe 2 or 3 times for a few key ones. There's all these little things. That's why my initial impressions on things are one way, but I'm gonna play the game 100, times. It's gonna be something where my opinion on that stuff is likely to change after I've seen it 20 times, 50 times. Start picking up on strange, little nuances in the performance or in the cutscene itself, in the animations or camera angles. These things take time. That's why it's interesting to me to have something new to analyze that people are looking at, and whether they're enjoying it or not. It's just cool seeing everybody's different takes on it. Most people's takes on it. There's a few takes that are unnecessary, we'll say. Sorry, every time I'm looking around these sections of the town, I always feel like there's something that I'm gonna miss. Like, double checking on the map, like, did I look at all these unique buildings? And a lot of times there's really specific little Easter eggs and stuff tucked away. Little textures and posters and things that don't really appear anywhere else. Love the ambient music during this part. Hey, Raging Air. Glad you were enjoying the remake playthrough. Once I'm done with this first-person playthrough, I'll be getting back to remake. We'll be doing a New Game Plus playthrough. See what endings we can get on a follow-up playthrough, because I know you can do similar to this one. You can make a save and clear a bunch of different endings in just like one playthrough if you set things up correctly. The drawer open where we got the Lost Memories book. Other side of the barricade here, leading to Brookhaven. It's interesting, they still sort of show the arrows as though you can go around the bowling alley. Also, I was thinking, did Silent Hill 2 Remake catch you unguarded with your plans? No, I pre-ordered it. I knew exactly when I was going to be playing it. I just didn't get to stream and play as much as I had originally planned on it. So, things don't really get finished when I plan them. They just kind of happen. I've never been good at scheduling. Oh, look, even with the music, can actually come right back into the bowling alley. like a whole nother section of the bowling alley through there. It's all boarded off. Eventually, once I get the free cam set up, we can look at that a little bit closer. What did I think of the bowling alley in Remake? It was fine. It's interesting that they moved all of the interactions over to the theater. They changed all of that stuff around, but I like that you could still go and visit the bowling alley, see familiar things, little flashbacks, familiar assets recreated. Stuff like these drawings are still there on the walls in the parking lot. There's nothing more to do here. Guess I'll go back to looking for Mary. A little bit of unique dialogue. Trying to come back and check the fence here when you're not supposed to be over in this part of the town. Wonder why I changed it. The movie theater wasn't that exciting. I'm not sure. Like, it definitely feels like they could have gone for the same interactions, just in the same setting. But hey, they wanted to do something different with it. They liked the movie theater. And again, stuff like that, I didn't hate it. I think I prefer aspects of the original when it comes to those characters meeting and interacting with each other, but definitely not something I'm hating. Not something I'm too worried about. I am trying to think, out of everything that was there in the theater, did they really do anything that new, anything that different that warranted it being there? I'm trying to think if there's any other little detail. I feel like the switch to Eddie eating ice cream, they wanted to do something more thematic with Eddie's Otherworld sort of coming off as cold. Because you see his breath. In every scene with Eddie, you see his breath as though it's cold, even if you don't see James's or other characters. So the first time you see that happen, you might kind of not realize it. You might have just, oh, okay, he's got ice cream. But it becomes more and more noticeable, I feel, during each interaction with him. Or perhaps you are a fool. The truth usually betrays people. A part of that abyss is in the old society. The key to this society is in the park, at the foot of the praying woman, inside of the ground, inside of a box. To open it, I need a wrench. My patient buried it there. I knew but did nothing. It made me uneasy to have such a thing near. I wasn't looking for the truth. I was looking for tranquility. I also saw that thing. I fled, but the museum was sealed as well. Now no one dares to approach that place. If you still do not wish to stop, James, I pray to the Lord to have mercy on your eternal soul. I got a wrench. Found this on a porch on Lindsay Street, a tool used for turning nuts and bolts. Just a nice first-person jog through the streets of Silent Hill. I can even take the floating gun away. Do you think they did it so they can include those flashes from the videotape on the projection screens? I mean, that was definitely one aspect of it. I don't know if they would relocate the entire thing just to facilitate that. That was probably the other way around, where they came up with reasons to move it and then added that when they were thinking of things to put in the theater. Which, as a fan, I thought was a little bit much, unnecessary, but at the same time, nobody, even a lot of fans who are familiar with the original and know what to look for, are not going to notice it. People who aren't familiar with the original and are not familiar with Silent Hill in general are definitely not going to notice it or know what it means. So that kind of stuff doesn't bother me, really. Like, it's minor nitpicky stuff, things that if I were making stuff, I would not put that there. If it were my remake, I would not put that there. But them putting it there does not, like, ruin the game either. Just a little detail. Same thing with the inventory. Every time you open the inventory, you're looking at James killing Mary. It's like super fuzzed in, zoomed in and fuzzy. There's like blurry and slow motion and all this other stuff going on, but every time you open the menu, was watching a friend play the remake the other day. On his playthrough, he didn't get the videotape flashes in the theater. I've heard from some other people that that it doesn't necessarily happen, but maybe it's a visual bug, because there are definitely bugs in the game. The remake has some issues. I actually had the VHS tape in the hotel during my first playthrough not play at all. It was just like a black screen with the audio playing, but nothing else. So, one of those situations where could be something random and intentional, could be the game just bugging and not showing something that it's supposed to. Personally like what they did on the inventory. Again, if you don't know what you're looking for and you don't even realize what it is, like, it's not... Nobody's knowing what that is. And by the time you are able to recognize what you're looking at, you're most likely familiar with those... the finer points of the game. And it's not like spoiling anything. Beluga Lake, keep the nature. In Comic Sans. Did they fix pickup prompt easier to pick up items with the new patch? They did. They actually did. Bad Humans Dog thought it was because performance mode has an issue playing it. Recorded a short clip of being in front of the screen on quality and then performance mode. It seemed random. Okay. Again, I don't know for sure. Could still potentially be a visual bug. Could be an intentional random aspect. Random thing. Because there are very specific, and I mean very specific things in the game that feel random that are not in Silent Hill 2 Remake. And the one that I was doing research on is the handgun. When you pick up the handgun in the apartments and load it, if you stand there in the room and aim, point the now loaded gun all around the room, it takes a random number of presses. But if you stand there and keep pressing just the aim button, eventually you will fire off a shot. This is just in the remake. It doesn't happen in the original game at all. And it was one of those things where people started talking about it because they're like, oh, maybe it's a glitch, maybe it's a bug or whatever. But going through and testing it and everything, it seems like it's a very intentional, repeatable thing. You pick up the gun, it won't happen unless the gun is like loaded with ammo. You walk around and aim, it'll just happen randomly and the gun will go off. And it works kind of like a jump scare because the gun goes off suddenly and you're like, oh shit, did I accidentally brush against the trigger or whatever? Like, did I accidentally shoot the gun? So it works to kind of scare the player, do something unexpected because they didn't pull the trigger, it just went off. And again, if you go back into the little like loop theory idea that James has been in this apartment and found that gun and reloaded it and aimed it around and accidentally shot it because he doesn't know what he's doing so many times that is the reason that apartment looks that way, which would also explain why you find a note. You find a note where somebody reports gunshots coming from that apartment, but the landlord goes and checks it out and is like, yeah, they don't have guns. We didn't find any guns. There's no sign of guns having been fired. So it's like, in the real world, the person who lives there doesn't own guns. In James's loop theory world, there's a gun there that James keeps picking up and loading and accidentally firing. And it's happened so many times that the apartment is just riddled with bullet holes. Nothing of interest inside the case. That looks like a really cool pocket watch or something there. Like detailed for how much you can't look at it directly or interact with it. Oh, there's more of them. Anyway, we'll talk more about loop theory and remake and guns going off when we eventually do that playthrough. The in-depth remake playthrough. For now, look at the first person perspective here. Enjoying Misty Day, Remains of the Judgment. It's him. That red pyramid thing. It's another thing. Remake officially removed. The only 2 instances in the original game where Pyramid Head is referred to as Pyramid Head, making his new official name Red Pyramid Thing. Because he was referred to as Pyramid Head in the original. The description for the great knife and the description for the eggs that you take from them at the end of the game in the original calls him Pyramid Head. Capitalized and everything, like a proper name. Grab this obsidian goblet. We'll need that for later. I love how you just walk in here and immediately hear the boat horn, the fog horn coming from this hole in the wall. It looks scorched. It looks like it's burned through. And this is where we will continue on tomorrow. Still have the prison, labyrinth, and hotel left. We'll probably finish that tomorrow and then get back to Silent Hill 2 Remake New Game Plus whenever the next stream after that is. But thank you all so very, very much for joining me. I appreciate you all being here. Really appreciate all the love and support. Thank you so much. I would keep going, but yeah, I don't want to overdo it, lose my voice again. So instead, I'm going to get some rest. I'll see you all tomorrow. Till then, be good to each other. Peace.